Hey guys, so today we are going to be solving multi-step equations with variables, and specifically these types of division problems. So there are these specific problems that seem to trip up students, so I wanted to go over these problems with you. They're similar to your assignment in your book, so you can look at these, and there's actually two parts. There's this one and a video about multiplication. Okay, so let's talk about division. So in higher level math, division looks like this, and this is a fraction. So if you notice, the actual division symbol is this guy, and these two dots represent numbers, or in this case, letters. So for example, x over 5. So the symbol is really standing for a fraction, which is pretty cool. Okay, the opposite of division is multiplication. And since we're solving, we need to go backwards and we need to use opposites, okay? So this x is pretty much all by itself. There's nothing getting added or subtracted to it, so I need to finish and get rid of this 5 from the x. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the opposite. Right now my x is getting divided by my 5, so I'm trying to figure out what's happening with my 5 and my x, and they're getting divided. The opposite of division is multiplication. So in order to get this x by itself, to remove the 5 from this side, we have to undo by doing the opposite. So we're going to multiply. So we multiply the left side by 5, and because it's an equation and must be balanced, we also have to multiply the right side by 5. You can use parentheses or dots. I'll use both on this worksheet so you can see. Please don't use x's because x's are our variable. On the left-hand side, 5 divided by 5 is 1. So in other words, these 5 gets canceled and the x is still left over. Then we have to do the right-hand side, and 5 times 2 is 10, and put the other 0, so it's 100. So x is 100. This was a nice little one-step equation, and I wanted to kind of show you some progressions so that you can see different types of equations and how that actually works. Okay, this problem, many students get confused on what to do with this negative, where it should go, and actually how many negatives that there should be. Some students like to put it with the y, and some students like to put it with the 3. I'm going to show you both ways so that you can see and you can pick what works best for you. So there is one negative sign and a fraction. That means that you have a number or a letter on the top and a number or a letter on the bottom. This little negative sign needs to go with one of them. So we're going to move it up to be with the y to start. So it's good to just decide what you would like to do. So I'm going to rewrite the problem. Now you have to figure out what's happening with the variable. So what's happening with my variable is it's getting divided by 3. Then you have to do the opposite. The opposite of divide by 3 is multiply. What you do to one side, you must do to the other. My 3's cancel on the left, leaving my minus y. On the right-hand side, we're going to do 15 times 3, which is 45. Don't be afraid to use your calculator. Please always check your answers. Now, it kind of looks like I'm done, but there's this little negative in front of my variable, and we can't leave him there because my variable isn't alone. Really what's happening is there's a negative 1 hanging out, and again, that means that my variable is not alone. So we need to divide each side by negative 1 because it's getting multiplied by the y, and we have to undo by doing the opposite. That means that y equals negative 45. This is the first version on how to complete this problem. Now, instead of assigning the negative to the y, we're going to give it to the 3. So this time, sorry, it's hard to write with the calculator next to me. We have y over negative 3 equals 15. Well, again, we ask ourselves, what's happening with the variable? Well, the variable is getting divided by negative 3. The opposite of division is multiplication. What we do to one side, we must do to the other. When you multiply, you must take the sign with you. So before we've multiplied by positives, so we've taken that positive sign. But if you multiply or divide each side, you have to take the sign. These cancel and become 1. And y equals 15 times negative 3. Well, look, I already have it here, but it's a positive because my 3 was positive, but here my 3 is negative. So really it's 15 times negative 3, which is negative 45. I got the same exact answer, but I had to do one more step when I gave the negative to my variable instead of giving the negative to your number. Either way is totally fine, whatever connects best with you. On number 3, all that really changed from number 1 to number 3 is I put a coefficient or a number in front of my variable on the top, and then I gave this little extra piece. So this is how we start these. Whatever is attached to this variable, the multiply, divide, needs to go second. So we do this second. The first thing we need to do is add and subtract to get this variable by itself. So we can kind of even draw a line going straight down here so we can figure out the left-hand side of our equal sign and the right-hand side of our equal sign, our equation. Remember that this left-hand side is completely equal to 9, the right-hand side. They just look different. So for example, if I had $5 on the left and I had a 1, a 1, a 1, a 1, and another 1. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're the same. I just didn't put cute little plus signs in between all of them. They look very different, but they mean the same thing. That's the same thing with this. 5x over 2 minus 1 is the same thing as 9. We're trying to figure out what variable needs to be replaced. Well, what the number that needs to go where the variable is. Okay, and we do that by solving. So we need to move this one over to the other side first. You always have to add, subtract first, then multiply, divide. So when solving 1, add, subtract, 2, y, multiply, divide. Oops, sorry, let's scoot that up. Okay, so we are going to add and subtract first. Steps. Okay, so we're going to move this 1 onto the other side. The opposite of minus 1 is add 1. So now I have 5x over 2 equals 10. Okay, so now again, we're trying to get this variable by itself. So we have some options, but it's easiest to move the bottom number first. Okay, so multiply, divide, and then here, bottom number first. Now all equations look slightly different, and this kind of changes within a problem more like number 4. A little bit, but I'll tell you about that. Okay, so we're going to multiply the left-hand side by 2 and the right-hand side by 2, because what we do on one side, we must do to the other side to keep our equation balanced. 10 times 2 is 20. Now we almost have the variable by itself, but the variable and 5 are getting multiplied. The opposite of multiply is divide. What we do on one side, we must do on the other. Now the 5's cancel, because 5 divided by 5 is 1, and our x is left with 4. Okay, last problem. Again, we need to start with the add and subtract. So over here, we do have a subtract, but this guy is part of our multiply divide. He's attached to our variable. So we're going to save this fraction-y piece to the very end. Any fraction-y piece, save it. Okay, because you're really using multiply and divide. All right, now we need to move our 5 over to the other side. And I'm going to draw another line, because I think that helps. So all of this junk over here on the left-hand side equals 28. And this guy is 28 because we can read him very well. All right, so we're going to add, subtract first. So the extra piece that's not attached to the variable is going to go over to the opposite side. We move something to the opposite side by taking it away when it's adding, because when we take it away, we also have to take it away on this side. So now we have 6x minus 8 divided by 2 equals 23. Okay, now, remember what I said before? This bottom number is first. I get and I see that there's a minus sign here, and I told you to add, subtract first. But this add, subtract first doesn't apply to fractions. And this bottom number is in a fractions. So add, subtract, we're going to say not when variable is in a fraction. Okay, so we're going to multiply, divide. We're going to get rid of this cute little 2 first because that's the bottom number. And we're going to do that by doing the opposite. Remember, this variable and this 2 are getting divided. That's what fractions mean. They mean divide. And the opposite of divide is by multiply. What we do to one side, we do to the other to keep it balanced. So we have 6x minus 8 equals 23 times 2 is 46. Okay, now we have the variable here. It's kind of shifted a little bit, and this looks more like a problem I've done on another video. Okay, my variable is attached to this 6, and it's getting multiplied because they're sitting right next to each other without a sign. So we want to save that multiply. We want to do the add subtract first. This negative 8 is getting subtracted by my 6x. So it's an add subtract. We're going to move that first to the other side. We have to do the opposite of minus, so we're going to add 8 to each side. Those guys cancel and make 0. Then I have 6x equals 48, 46, and 8, which is 54. Okay, then our last step is to get this x by itself. Since the 6 and the x are getting multiplied, we're going to divide. What we do to one side, we do to the other. And x equals 9. Again, don't be afraid to use your calculator. I like to double check. Okay, I hope this answers any questions that you may have with division and variables. Please talk to your teacher if you're still confused. Have a great day. Bye, guys.